Check, check. We can give it a minute or so before we dive into it. But we here live. I'm going to talk about the Eagles and Commanders upcoming game tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this game, what's on now? This game doesn't seem like a big game, but it actually is, because Eagles win the division, becoming the first team since the 03 and 04 season Eagles to win the NFC East back-to-back years, folks. Yes, it's true. It's actually been that long since we actually have done that. And since any team, not just us, but we were the last team to win the NFC East back-to-back years. That was 03 when we fell short against the Panthers in the NFC Championship game. And then 04 when we made it to the Super Bowl against the Patriots for Super Bowl 39, where Terrell Owens played on hastily a leg and a half. It's our first, this would be the first time since then that the same team has won the NFC East back-to-back years, let alone us winning the division back-to-back years. So that's crazy. So there actually is something on the line in this game, even though on paper we're the far better team. But we got to remember something. First off, thing we got to remember is we still got to step on the field and play. Even though on paper we're the clear-cut favorites and we should win this game, we know when it comes to division rivalry games, anything can happen. I mean, you can look back throughout the history. Remember, 2021, we split with the Giants when we made the playoffs as the 7th seed with 9 wins. Giants were nowhere near it. Remember, 2008, we beat the Cowboys in that 44-6 game, but we got swept by the Commanders that season, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So the point is, sometimes, or remember 2022, our first loss in that run during that season we ran to Super Bowl 57 was to Washington on Monday night. And they were just an average team that year at best. So, point is, sometimes you still got to step on the field and actually play the game and win. Even with all the hype going into it, even though on paper we should win, and I say that still we should, sometimes you still got to wait and see. And you know how it is with division rivalry games, sometimes anything can happen. Like you look at the New England Patriots, Miami Dolphins during the Belichick-Brady era. Patriots were the far better team, but usually when they would play in Miami, the Dolphins, some reason, had the Patriots' number. Even though the Patriots with Brady and Belichick were the far superior team during that era, for some reason the Dolphins had their number in Miami. So the point is, with these division rivalry games, sometimes you never know. Even if you may think, Infinix edits, what's up? What is up? All right, we're getting some people in here. Yeah, and so thanks for coming in, everyone. I'm here talking about Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, tomorrow night, NFL football. And that's what we're talking about tomorrow night. We're waiting some people to come in. So this game, like as I was saying, this should be an easy game. We're the far better football team, even with our flaws, but you never, like I said, sometimes you never know what's going to happen until they step on the field. And like I said, sometimes like we saw the New Orleans Saints swept the Carolina Panthers this season, even though the Saints aren't going to the playoffs, and the Panthers are tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to potentially win that division and host a home playoff game. So, hey, sometimes you never know, especially with these division rivalry games. And this game should be closer than expected, too. So, we still got to actually wait for them to get on the field and see how the game plays out. The Eagles should clearly win this game, and on paper they should blow out Washington, but we still got to wait and see how it plays out. Because with that being said, we're fresh off a shutout over the Raiders, and yes, there's going to be those that say, whoa, you beat the Las Vegas Raiders, what's the big deal? Now, the Raiders itself, that was an easy winnable game that we should have won, and we did. But the shutout part, I got to admit, that was the one part I was thrilled about that Raiders game. I expected us to win. I'm like, look, you better beat the Raiders. But to shut them out, that was actually a little bit of a relief. I mean, yeah, easy team or not, a shutout's never easy as it sounds, no matter who you're playing. So I got to give the Eagles props for shutting out the Raiders, even if they may be one of the worst teams in the league, because that shutout's not as easy as it may sound. And, Saquon Barkley's coming off two of his better games this season, so he's gotten a little streak going. And going against the Washington Commanders, who struggled last week against the Giants run game, and Tyron Tracy Jr., that's a favorable matchup for us running the ball against them. And plus, Washington, we saw last game against the Giants, their rush defense was horrible. That was the one thing. I mean, even though Washington won the game against the Giants in a shootout, their defense was horrible against Jackson Dart and Tyron Tracy Jr. So that's a favorable matchup right there for us, our offense versus their defense. I mean, we torched the Raiders, who are a struggling team, similar to Washington, so we should be able to do the same tomorrow night. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, even Saquon Barkley. Now that you actually have something going with him, in this case, particularly when they line up under center, Saquon Barkley's is most efficient as a runner. We've seen it this season. Those of you that have watched enough games, you see the difference with Saquon when they try to run with him out of the shotgun formation versus under center. When they run it under center, Saquon's much more efficient. It suits his running style better. But when they try to line up under shotgun, it's hard to really get Saquon going with good runs. Usually those situations, you get 1 or 2 yard runs at best. But you line them up under center, as we've seen the last 2 weeks, works better. So I expect them to do more of the same tomorrow night. Keep that streak going. You got something that's actually starting to work now with the run game. Keep it going. And like I said, Washington, they're fresh off a disastrous game against the run, even in a victory. Because let's see, what did they let up? And I'm looking at it real quickly to see what numbers are real quick. The exact numbers for the Giants-Commanders game. 1 second, folks. All right, so, Washington did win the game, 29-21. They got the sweep for the season, but here's the big but. They gave up 70 yards to Tyron Tracy Jr., who's, as of now, their second-string running back when Cam Skadden, who was healthy, and they gave up over 100 yards on the round, 70 to Tracy, 63 to Jackson Dart when he was scrambling. So, in that scenario, they gave up 143 yards on the ground between those two, plus Devin Singletary at 13. So, that's 156 yards they gave up on the ground. So, they did that to Washington. They did that against the Giants. I like our odds. And plus, Jackson Dart had 2 touchdown passes, which was the good thing the Giants did. So, if the Giants can do that with less than we have around them, I'm expecting the Eagles to have a great game on offense. As long as they don't do anything stupid, like stay up late tonight, playing Fortnite, or going out partying, or taking eggnog shots, or some stupid holiday-themed partying. If they want to do that Sunday after the game, then by all means go for it. But don't do something stupid like that can affect your ability to play the next day, where you come in the game hungover. Don't do that. Yeah, because as long as you prepare properly, you should be able to just dominate this game, like I said. Because on paper, we look like we're the far superior team. Even with our flaws this season, even with AJ, but I don't really see the Eagles doing that, though, too. Partying tonight, especially since it's a road game. Yeah, that'd be stupid. But that's beside the point. But you see, like I said, even Jalen Hurts. Okay, he hasn't had his greatest season, but we know in the right situations he can excel. He did good against that Raiders defense. He should be able to do the same against Washington's defense, which is completely fallen to shit this year, because you see, they got way too many older guys on that team. Von Miller, Bobby Wagner, who, don't get me wrong, those guys were excellent in the mid-2010s. 2 of the best in the NFL at that time. But Yeah, now these guys are in the later stage of their career. And newsflash to Washington. Von Miller and Bobby Wagner at this stage in their career work when you have young linebackers. Now, if you have a room full of young linebackers, you're bringing in a guy like Wagner or Von Miller to be a mentor and to bring some leadership to the linebacking room, yeah, then by all means go for it. But Washington's made the mistake of bringing these two guys in to be their main linebackers. I mean, I'm talking, this Washington defense is dreadful. They're at the bottom of the league right by the Cincinnati Bengals. It's atrocious. It is. It really is. So if we can do well against the Raiders defense, quite frankly, we should be able to take care of the Commanders. And now that I'm looking at the standings, you got the Giants defense, the Cowboys defense, Tampa Bay's defense. These are some of the defenses we played against who are struggling. Tampa Bay has not had that great of a defense this season, and we scored over 30 against them, mostly in the first half, but we put up a lot of points. The rematch against the Giants, we destroyed them. Against the Raiders last week, we destroyed them. So if we're talking this Washington Commanders defense, yeah, give me the Eagles to take care of them. Give me Saquon Barkley to take a bunch of carries under center and continue his momentum for the last couple games. Give me Saquon to have at least 70 yards if you do it that way. Give me that. Give me at least one if not two touchdown passes from Jalen Hurts. At least get Saquon and Hurts to either throw a touchdown or rush for one in this one. Give me that. Because I don't really see this Commanders defense. At this stage in the season, they've pretty much all but given up. And you look at them throughout the season. They've struggled mightily, and they struggled too. In Green Bay, they gave up 27. They even gave up 24 to the Raiders in a victory week 3. They gave up 34 to the Falcons. They gave up 44 against the Cowboys, 38 against the Seahawks, 44 against the Lions, 31 against the Vikings, 21 against the Giants, and they let the Giants make the game close. Look, you starting to see a trend here. The Commanders' defense consistently struggling all season. I think, yeah, it's pretty obvious there's a trend here, and I think the Philadelphia Eagles should have a field day with that. So I'm predicting the offense to go all out and dominate against these Washington Commanders. Sorry defense. They got way too many old guys on the team. Way too many. And with guys like Bobby Wagner, Von Miller, what were you thinking? You're bringing in way too many old guys. And now, Washington fans, welcome to what we as Sixers fans have to deal with a Josh Harris-owned team. And I know that seems off subject, but remember, Josh Harris, the owner for the Washington Commanders, is also an owner for the Sixers. And the Sixers have built a lot of their teams with a ton of veterans. And now Washington's doing the same. So welcome to that, Washington Commanders. Yeah, I'm predicting this offense to go lights out. I mean, we saw last week. I mean, really, I don't see who is there really that. There's only one player that actually concerns me on Washington Commanders. One player that actually concerns me as far as someone who can get open, create space, and score some points. And who is that again? There's one player that's had numerous picks that's actually been pretty solid for Washington, but outside of that, I don't see anything. If Washington's allowed 382 yards on average, that's the second worst in the NFL. So I don't see that, but there's one guy that's had 4 interceptions. I'm going to have to look it up real quick because I can't remember off the top of my head. But the point I'm going to be getting at is there's only one player that actually concerns me on that defense. And let's see. That's Mike Sanristil, if I'm pronouncing that correct. I mean, he's a second-year player on Washington defensive back. He's the one player that concerns me the most. The one player. And that's it. So I'm predicting the Eagles offense to have a field day here against this team. Just, as long as you don't turn the ball over, do anything stupid like turning the ball over in the opposing team's territory, then you should be good, which they did make a habit out of before they snapped out of it last week against the Raiders. So as long as we don't do that, I feel like we're good in that regard. So that's one benefit we have right there. And then, now let's switch sides for a second. Because we're talking all about the Eagles' offense. I'm going to hear yabbering away about how the Eagles' offense is superior to them. And they should be. But we got to talk about another reason why on paper this looks like an eerily easy game. Defense. Eagles defense. I'll say this. Under Vic Fangio, they've been doing pretty solid all year long. Even with some of the struggles, the defense has been consistent throughout the season. I mean, except for the Giants' first game where they were dreadful, they've been pretty solid all season long. Even with that loss to the Chargers, we saw the defense did a pretty good job holding the Chargers to field goals. It was the offense that screwed that one up. So, but you still see Jalen Carter, Jalen Phillips, who's been an excellent addition to this defense and has helped us out with the 3 wins we've had since we acquired him. You still got guys like, you got Jalen Hunt, who's starting to come into his own, who's showing some flashes to be a guy for the future. You still got Zach Bond. And, you still got Jordan Davis, who's stepping up, having himself a good season this year. Now, he's showing he's more athletic, more versatile, and he's doing more on the field. Then the secondary obviously has been one of the weaker points of the defense. But you still got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, who can still make some plays for you. Washington's offense, I mean, the one player you got to watch out for is Deebo Samuel. With that one, I'll say, with Deebo Samuel, his potential to go off, the big thing you got to do there is mainly you got to keep Deebo Samuel, put Quinyon Mitchell on him, all right? If you put Quinyon Mitchell against Deebo Samuel, that's the best way to shut him down. Pretty simple. And that's because obviously you don't want to put an Adoree Jackson or Kelee Ringo on him. That would be just stupid right there. You're going to get cooked right there by Deebo all day. But here's the other concern. You do have Terry McLaurin, though, which this is where it gets a little different. The pass game, because you still got Deebo and McLaurin. You got one of those guys. Like, you're probably going to match up Quinyon Mitchell against Deebo, but Terry McLaurin, who are you going to match up with him? That's where I'm concerned with right there, that matchup. So that could open some lanes in the passing game, even with Marcus Mariota being the starting quarterback for this game. You still got, especially with McLaurin and Samuel playing, I don't really like that matchup right there. And then you have Treylon Burks as the number 3 receiver, who, mind you, he did have a touchdown against Denver, but he's not really a threat. And plus, Zach Ertz, unfortunately, he's out. We know about the injury he had a few weeks ago, so he won't be playing. You got McLaurin and Samuel will be in there. That's the one area I'm a little bit concerned with. Now, the Eagles' ability to stop the run, it shouldn't be that alarming, but although, to be fair, you got Chris Rodriguez Jr., who's third-year man. He's been decent for them on the ground game. So he has provided them a little bit of a spark, but I'm not really that concerned with him. I mean, he's about an average backup running back at best when I look at him. The main thing, though, is going against the receivers. Because I'm confident in Quinyon Mitchell. You put him against whoever, McLaurin or Samuel, he shuts down or minimizes them. But it's that other side. It's that other matchup. What do you do there? That's the concern. And then there's also the concern at safety. You're going with either Sidney Brown or Marcus Epps. come playoff time, but that's another subject for another time in itself. I'm more on this particular game. Let me see. Let's look at the depth chart. I'm going to look at the depth charts real quick. Let's see. So I can get a better idea of how this is going to go down. 1 second. I'm going to pull up the Eagles depth chart, see where we're at. Because I just took a look at Washington. Now let's take a look at the Eagles. Yeah. Corner 1, Quinyon Mitchell. And then you got Adoree Jackson's going to be the second guy. And obviously I'm not the biggest fan of him. And what else we got? Oh, Jalen Carter's out. I mean, that could we've seen with Jalen Carter being out, that's a little bit of a concern there because Jalen Carter, we've seen he's missed 3 games this season thus far. 2 of those 3 games he missed, the Eagles' pass rush was horrible. And that being week 1 against the Cowboys, especially in the first half, and then the first go-around against the Giants on Thursday night. And we did do a solid job against the Chargers without him. But that's also against the Chargers team that's finding ways to win in spite of having a poor offensive line. So there's that. So we got to wonder how's that going to factor in. Now you got Jalen Phillips right there. He could be your rush. He could be your pass rushing linebacker. He could help us out on this one. But you got to wonder, do we go? In this case, it would probably be smart to run a 4-3 on this one. Try to get some speed out there with the pass rushing without Jalen Carter. That's a good way to get to Marcus Mariota because Mariota's that quarterback that he's limited as a passer. He's mediocre backup QB at best. We saw him as a starter at Tennessee. He was a average quarterback that flashed moments here and there, but was never the true long-term guy. And he got replaced by Ryan Tannehill, who was also pretty limited too. But the point I'm getting is Marcus Mariota throughout his career has been at best an average quarterback. So if we bring some pressure on him, you can make him fold real easy. I think you could do a 4-3. I know Fangio doesn't do it that often, but that would be a way to mix it up. Now, realistically, I don't see him doing that because that's not really Fangio's style. He's more of a 3-4 guy. You'll maybe see some flashes of the 4-3, but he mostly runs out of the 3-4 set. So, but with that being said, though, it's like defensively, it's going to be more challenging than the Raiders. I'm not expecting a shutout. I don't think we're going to shut them down like we did the Raiders because Washington, while they're still a struggling team, they at least have some talent on their offense. The Raiders have, at best, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty. Here, you got 2 good receivers with Samuel McLaurin. At least Washington has some weapons that could make some plays, even though they're not a good team. So I expect them to be a little more competitive than the Raiders. But I do expect the Eagles to win, make no mistake about it. The Eagles should still go out on the field, take care of business, and beat the Washington Commanders. Because we've seen it. We saw it last week. We saw that the Eagles, they came down from playing some solid teams. And now it works out perfectly, too, that they're playing Washington at this stage of the season because you got this week you got to play Washington. Then you come back, you got to play Buffalo week 17 after Christmas. I'm not as confident about that matchup, but that's another story for another time. But then the point is you got to come back the final week of the season, play at home against Washington. So 2 of these final 3 games, you're playing the Commanders. Now, it's crazy to think, at the time the schedule was made, they would put these games together thinking Philly and Washington would be the 2 top teams in the NFC East fighting for winning the division. That was the expectation going into the season. But now that we're actually here and the 2 teams are playing each other, it's worked out differently. Eagles, not as strong as they were last year, but they still won 9 games. And all they have to do is win 1 more game. They win the division automatically. Or the Cowboys lose 1 more game. Eagles win out. It's not going to mean that's all you need. And I'm confident with the schedule with the Eagles and Washington Commanders that they're going to win out. I feel like if you win this game, there's a good possibility you might not even be playing your starters come week 18 in the rematch, because the way it's looking with the NFC playoff picture right now, it looks like the Eagles are almost a lock, unofficially a lock to get the 3rd seed. Because, look, all the Cowboys need to do is just take another loss, and the Eagles went out. That's pretty. Even if the Eagles somehow, which I doubt, if they somehow lose to Washington, lose to Buffalo, they could probably still have the NFCs locked going into the final week. But I think in that scenario, they'll probably... Yeah, but they would be pretty close neck and neck with either the Panthers or Bucks. But we're not going to really get into that because we still got to wait and see what happens. That's just a what-if scenario. But the point I'm getting is, what we could see, though, is, the Eagles win this game, get up to 10 wins. They could have the number 3 seed locked going into Week 18, regardless of what happens next week with Buffalo. And they could be like, all right, we got the number 3 seed locked. We don't have to play our starters, and they could rest everyone for the playoffs. Because the way it's looking right now, it's like Seattle's likely getting home field advantage thanks to their win against the Rams last night. Likely you're getting the Chicago Bears or Green Bay Packers, the number 2 seed, more likely the Bears. And that also depends on the outcome of that game tomorrow, which is going to have major playoff implications as well on playoff seeding and the standings. And some of us as Eagles fans, some of you may want the Packers to beat the Bears, to knock the Bears down to another loss. Since they beat us, that'd give them the edge over us in the standings. But that's not going to officially mean anything at the end of the day. And then you got but either way, though, really, I think it's going to probably come down to the Seahawks most likely being number 1. Bears probably being the number 2 seed. Eagles probably number 3. Either the Panthers or Bucks number 4 being the final division winner, whoever wins that division. So Eagles are most likely staying at the number 3 seed. So the point is, this could be the last game of if the Eagles do win as expected tomorrow, this could be the last... This and then maybe the Buffalo game are the last games of the season where we really see our starters. And this could potentially be the last win of the season. Because I don't like our odds against Buffalo next week. Realistically. Because Buffalo's fresh off a big win over New England. They're fighting to retain the AFC East title and have another home playoff game. Well, the Eagles have struggled against good teams this season. So even you beat Washington as expected, whether it's a cakewalk or whether it's a close game, I'm expecting the Eagles to win this either way. And then probably against Buffalo, that'll probably be a struggle because that's been the trends of the season. And then you're possibly talking Week 18. You're not even playing your starters because you're like, yeah, we got this playoff spot locked. We don't need to. We're not going to risk anything going into the playoffs. So that's a potential... Right, there's a potential scenario right there. But, again, this is all just on paper. So we still got to wait and see how it plays out. We'll have to see. But, hey, we still got to play this game against Washington first. All that talk, that's just mere possible scenarios that could happen a week or two from now. And I'm thinking about it. I am starting to think ahead a little bit. And I'm also starting to think ahead to the playoffs a little bit. The way it's playing out, it looks like most likely we'll have that 3 seed, which would be 3 versus 6, which at this point, it's probably going to be the 49ers possibly as the 6 seed. So it's looking most likely we're going to play the 49ers in the playoffs. So at least I feel like here, this game against Washington, going against McLaurin and Samuel, at least if we can shut down those guys, that could at least be a momentum builder for a possible 49ers game, having to go against Kittle. And I don't know, I'm trying to look at the schedule. I don't really think, we got James Cook against Buffalo. That could be a test for our run defense. Potentially, going up against Christian McCaffrey in the opening round of the playoffs at home. But I know I could see that working. And I also like the idea, I actually like that matchup against the 49ers, honestly. Hear me out. Because the 49ers, the thing is with that, the 49ers are a team that plays out west in the warmer weather. They'd have to come to Philly, play us possibly in the cold come January. That could help us out a little bit. So I would, if I'm looking for a favorable opening round matchup, I would like to see the 49ers at home in the cold. That could be a tougher game. But we got to remember, though, too, to be fair, last year we struggled. We had a tight game against the Rams in the snow in the divisional round, the team that's used to playing in a dome out in California. So we'll have to wait and see. But on paper, the most favorable matchup would be at home against the Niners. Or if somehow the Rams were to fall to the 6th seed and the Niners were to move up, which I doubt. But I would like that opening round matchup against one of those teams. And the best way to do it is beat Washington, get to 10 wins, because the last thing you want is to possibly lose 3 straight and still make the playoffs in spite of it, possibly be the 4 seed, go against the Rams. You want to at least beat Washington to build momentum, because if we lose to Washington and then lose to Buffalo and then we already got playoff spot locked and rest our starters and lose them again, dude, that would be the most disgraceful way to win the division. That would be even more disgraceful than that 2019 season, which, let's be honest, I know I'm going back a little bit before Jalen Hurts, before Sirianni, back to Doug Peterson, I know, but that was the year the Eagles were hailed heroes by the fans for that 4-game winning streak, going into the final month 5-7. But those 4 wins came against NFC's foes in an absolutely weak division. That was not a good way to win the division. We were the weakest team in the playoffs that year. And it showed when we got destroyed by the Seahawks at home. But that was a different story, though. But the point I'm getting is losing 3 straight and waking it at 9-8 would be the most disgraceful way. It would even be worse than the 2023 collapse, because at least with that 2023 collapse, you could say we had to go against the 49ers, the Cowboys, and even though the Seahawks loss was embarrassing, the Seahawks were still a solid team. And we could get some benefit of the doubt because we were resting our starters the final game against the Giants. But at the same time, though, this would be even more embarrassing to have 2 losses to Washington, a loss Buffalo. So just win out, Eagles. Win this game. I mean, I know that division rivalry games can sometimes be closer than expected. But, dude, just win this game against Washington, please. Grego, what is up? What is up? I mean, my expectations with the Eagles is if we win a somewhat competitive game where Washington at least puts up a fight, it's like if we win, say, 27-13, and then Washington at least makes it somewhat competitive, especially if, say, McLaurin and Samuel have good games for them, I could at least accept that type of victory. And be like, all right, Washington at least they came in looking to knock us off because we're their rival. Their receivers showed up and had a good game. I could at least respect that. But we still take care of business and win. That's a respectable way. But if we were to win, say, 19-17 on a last-second field goal, that would be a little bit, I wouldn't be the most satisfied fan in the world. I would be happy we win, but I'll be like, yeah, but it did have to be that close. Now, if we go in there, though, and just blow them out and make people forget about us being their rival. Forget about all that. Just go in there, destroy them. Like 35-17 or something like that. Or even 28-9 or something like that. I'm not expecting a shutout 2 straight weeks, but if we destroy them in some of those fashion, like some of those scores I gave, I'll take it. Yes, it would only be against Washington Commanders, but it would at least be a win to build some momentum for the playoffs. And at least give us maybe a small smidgen of hope against the Buffalo Bills, because I'm thinking we go in there, beat Washington, we go against Buffalo. What be fair, Buffalo doesn't have a great defense. So out of all the top teams we've played this season, Buffalo is probably the worst defensive team out of those teams. So I at least could be a little bit confident that we could score some points against Buffalo and at least have a chance in that game. That's for next week. We still got to wait and see what they do tomorrow. Getting back to tomorrow's game, how the Eagles perform tomorrow, win or lose, or even tie. I feel that tomorrow's performance is going to be an indication of our chances against Buffalo. If we can go in there, win in convincing fashion, then at least we have a chance against Buffalo. At least a chance, especially against that weak defense. But if we barely win or lose in a shootout where a defense gets reckless, then I'm not going to be that confident. I mean, at that point, I'll have no confidence going forward for playoffs if we lose this game for any reason at all. Because I don't care if it was a bad call at the end of the game. We should not be in a predicament where a bad call could affect the outcome negatively. Going against Washington, we should be able to win this game. We shouldn't have to worry about a referee call or misplacement of the ball or one drop pass. We should not have to worry about that being the deciding factor. We should be able to just going into the last couple minutes, we should have the game won. I know sometimes you never know, but I'm going to see. Like I said, even now, we don't have Jalen Carter in this one. That's going to play a factor. But again, with Jalen Phillips in the mix, with him actually being on the field, that should help our pass rush without Jalen Carter, especially against Mariota. That should be at least good enough to contain them. Even if he does manage to get the ball out of his hands to McLaurin or Samuel, if those guys do have, one of those guys ends up having a solid game, we should still at least be able to stop them. And we should at least score 20 points on them. If we don't at least get 20 points, then something went wrong. Either somebody had a horrible play call, either the Eagles barely practiced, or something if we don't even get 20 points against this team. Or the whole team got injured in the first half, but I don't believe that's going to happen, though. I don't. I believe my expectations for this game are, well, obviously a win. Second, at least 20 points, like I just said. At least. Minimum 20 points. Third expectation, at least a sack. One or two, at least something. Those are some of the expectations. And at least one turnover generated from this defense. A fumble on defense, on special teams against them, an interception, something. Those are some of my expectations for this game, as well as at least one rushing touchdown. So those are some of my expectations. And they're not, now maybe we don't hit all five of them, but at least I think we get 3 of those 5 expectations. And we should win this game. Point blank. Yeah, I know beating Washington isn't going to impress some of the biggest critics. They're still going to look at it like it's just the Commanders. But for me, it's about confidence for this team going forward. If you do what you're supposed to do against Washington and win, and at least give us something to be impressed with, that at least gives me some confidence going forward. That's what this is about for me. And Grega says he's got us getting the dub 30-10. Which that would be great. 30-10 win. Sign me up for that. I'll be happy come Sunday morning if that happens. So give me a 30-10 win right there. I am happy. So I'll take that one right there. But, hey, why is it on Saturday? I'm thinking probably it was scheduled on Saturday going into the season with the expectation that this was going to be a game with something big on the line, because going into the season, a lot of us thought that, oh, Washington was going to be a good team. The division was going to come down to either us or Washington. So I think that was the thing with it. Going into the season, there was that expectation. But, it doesn't always work out that way. But, hey, that's football for you. It happens. And we see it all the time, too. It's like, we see games that we think are going to be great games, and that we think, oh, this will be a really fun game, and it doesn't always pan out that way. So, but we got to wait and see. We got to wait and see. But either way, at least it gives me something to root for on Saturday. So I'll still be supporting the Birds, flocking with them, hoping for a win. I'm probably then going to come back on Monday, or either late Sunday night or Monday. We'll talk about it afterward. But we still got to wait and see what happens. I don't really have much else to say. I'm just going to kind of close this out, recap some of the main points I brought up for those that didn't catch the whole thing. My keys to victory in this one are being able to at least run the ball, being able to run efficiently, minimize turnovers, because we saw in the 3 losses, turnovers, particularly when we were moving the ball downfield, were a hindrance to us. If we stay away from that, that helps us out. Get some pressure up front. Get some pressure on Mariota. Force him to make mistakes. Because when he has time in the pocket, he can be decent and put up some decent fantasy numbers. But when you bring the heat on him, he's going to fold. There's ultimately a reason Mariota's now become a journeyman backup quarterback. If you bring heat on him, you're going to remind people why he's a journeyman now and not a top 2 quarterback for his original team, the Tennessee Titans. And lastly, those are my main 3 keys to victory. And then my expectations, recap real quickly, are I expect us to get at least 1 rushing touchdown, at least a sack or 2, probably at least 1 turnover, something. Fumble, interception, something. And I also I'm expecting us to at least score 20 points minimum and expecting a win. So those are my expectations. Pretty straightforward. So I came on here, talked about it, talked about the game a little bit, looked at the injury report. We're down Jalen Carter. That's our big loss on defense. But outside of that, we're healthy. And with Jalen Phillips being there, that at least helped the pass rush outside of Jalen Carter. And to me, outside of McLaurin and Sam, there's nobody on Washington's offense that I feel is a threat to have a good game. So I'm expecting a win, get to 10 wins on the season. We should clinch the NFC East, becoming the first team since the 03 and 04 Eagles to win back-to-back NFC East division titles. And not just for first time since for us, and the first time for the NFC East, period. So I expect that streak of different teams winning the NFC East that's been expanding 2 decades plus to finally come to an end. And plus, too, it also helps the Cowboys, who one more loss, it's over for them. They play the Chargers this week. I'm confident that the Chargers are going to take care of business and beat them. So I'm confident in that one right there. So I got us winning this game, taking care of business. And then coming back either late Sunday, early Monday, toasting the Eagles, hosting a home playoff game. So I'm confident that's going to happen. So with that being said, all I'm going to say is time for talking's over. Time for the Eagles to get on the field, take care of business, get this W, make it at least, make a statement, all right? Make a statement, make the haters that are laughing at us at least have something to take us serious for. You do that, I'll be happy with it. And we'll be celebrating another home playoff game. So with that being said, I'll close out saying fly, Eagles, fly. I'm going to rock with them tomorrow, regardless of the outcome. So I'm just hoping for a victory so we can have a victory lap. If you haven't done so yet and you're stopping by, please drop a like on the stream to show your support. If I don't drop anything the rest of the day, have a great rest of your day. Until next time, it's your boy Nicky Steve signing off. Fly, Eagles, fly, and peace.